Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. And today, I'm going to go my review of Summerslam 1999. Starting off the evening, we're going to our first match of the night. It is for the WWE European and Intercontinental Championship. It is Jeff Jarrett versus D'Lo Brown. I thought this was an okay opening match for SummerSlam 1999. Back and forth matchup between both Jarrett and D'Lo Brown, with D'Lo hitting a devastating power slam on Jarrett, as well as a devastating spine buster on Jarrett as well. D'Lo was keeping the pace pretty much throughout the match. D'Lo then hits a leg drop on Jarrett in the middle of the ring. Mark Henry then makes his way down to the aisle. Mark Henry then hits D'Lo with Jeff Jarrett's guitar, with the referee being distracted. Jarrett then goes for the cover, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and at that time, new WWE European and Intercontinental Champion, is Jeff Jarrett. Hats off to Jeff Jarrett for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is a tag team turmoil match. Starting off the match, we have Edge and Christian versus the Hardy Boys. The match itself was a fantastic match. Back and forth matchup between both Edge and Christian and the Hardys. Edge and Christian were keeping the pace of the match. Jeff then hits a devastating springboard moonsault on Christian in the middle of the ring. Jeff then hits a swanton on Christian off the top rope. Christian then gets up, hits a double reverse DDT. Edge then hits a spear on Jeff, running on the barricade, which was absolutely insane. Matt then hits a moonsault off the top rope, taking out Christian. Edge and Christian end up hitting the finish, pin for the 3, and the Hardy Boys are now eliminated from this matchup. The next team to come into this match are Viscera and Minion. Viscera hits a fallaway slam on Christian and looked absolutely brutal. Minion then hits a knee drop. Viscera then hits a spinning heel kick on Edge. It looked absolutely brutal. Edge then hits a spear on Minion, pins for the 3, and Viscera and Minion are now eliminated from this match as well. The next tag team to come in this match are Draws and Albert. Edge hits a facebuster on Albert and pins for the 3, and Draws and Albert are both eliminated from this match as well. Farouk and Bradshaw are the next tag teams in here. Edge then hits a drop kick off the top rope on Bradshaw. Edge then hits a spinning heel kick on Farouk in the middle of the ring. Farouk then hits a devastating spine buster on Edge in the middle of the ring. Bradshaw then hits a signature clothesline from Hell on Christian, pinning him for the 3, and Edge and Christian are now eliminated from this match as well. The last tag team to come into this match is Hardcore Holly and Crash Holly. Hardcore Holly and Crash both exchange in the middle of the ring for some reason, with Farouk capitalizing on that, hitting a spine buster on Hardcore Holly, pinning him for the 3, and your winners of the match are Farouk and Bradshaw. Hats off to Farouk and Bradshaw for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is for the WWE Hardcore Championship. It is Al Snow versus the Big Boss Man. This was a really, really good match. Back and forth matchup between both Al Snow and the Big Boss Man. Al Snow then hits a crossbody off the stage structure on the Big Boss Man. Boss Man then gets up, hits Snow with a chalkboard backstage. Bossman and Snow then fight in the street. Both of them exchange in the middle of the street. Snow then hits a moonsault off the top of a bar. Road Dogg then is involved throughout this match. He's on the microphone throughout the entire time, trying to talk to Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross. Road Dogg then gets involved, hits Bossman with his own nightstick, and then pins for the 3. And your winner of the match, and new at that time WWE Hardcore Champion, is Al Snow. Hats off to Al Snow for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is for the WWE Women's Championship. It is Ivory defending the championship against Tori. I thought it was an okay matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Ivory and Tori. Tori ends up hitting a drop kick on Ivory. Ivory then gets up, pretty much keeping the pace of the match after that. Tori ends up hitting a spear. Tori then hits a crossbody off the top rope on Ivory, but Ivory ends up hitting a roll-up on Tori, pinning her for the 3, and your winner of the match, and at that time still WWE Women's Champion, is Ivory. Hats off to Ivory for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is a Lion's Den matchup. It is Ken Shamrock versus Steve Blackman. I thought this was a good match. Back and forth matchup between both Shamrock and Steve Blackman, with Blackman keeping the pace of the match. Blackman then attacks Shamrock with nunchucks. Shamrock then applies an armbar on Steve Blackman. Shamrock was trying to keep the pace. Shamrock then hits a power slam on Blackman. Blackman then hits Shamrock with a kendo stick that looked absolutely brutal. Shamrock ends up hitting a belly-to-belly suplex on Steve Blackman, and your winner of this matchup was Ken Shamrock. Hats off to Ken Shamrock for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is a street fight. It is Test versus Shane McMahon. Number one, this was a good matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Test and Shane McMahon, with Test keeping the pace of the match. Test then hits a devastating power slam on Shane McMahon in the middle of the ring. Test then hits a press slam on Shane, sending Shane into the Mean Street Posse that was sitting ringside. Mean Street Posse ended up attacking Test. Shane then hits Test with a sign. Shane then hits Test with a picture when the glass broke all over the place ringside. Test then goes to hit a big boot on Shane but missed and ended up hitting the ref instead. Mean Street Posse end up attacking Test and throw him onto the announce table. Shane then gets to the top rope inside the ring, hits an elbow drop off the top rope to Test on the announce table. It looked absolutely brutal. Pat Patterson and Briscoe are here to attack the Mean Street Posse. Test then hits a pump-up slam on Shane McMahon, and then Test ends up hitting a devastating elbow drop on Shane, pinning him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Test. Hats off to Test for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is for the WWE Tag Team Championships. It is Kane and X-Pac versus The Undertaker and The Big Show. I thought this was a relatively good matchup as well. Back and forth matchup between both teams. Kane ends up hitting a clothesline on Undertaker off the top rope. Big Show then lands a big boot on Kane. Big Show then hits a devastating power slam on Kane as well. Undertaker then lands an elbow on Kane in the corner. Taker and Kane both exchange in the middle of the ring. X-Pac hits a spinning heel kick on the Undertaker. X-Pac then hits a low blow on the Big Show. Kane then is unleashing strikes on Undertaker and the Big Show. X-Pac then hits a Bronco Buster on the Big Show in the corner. Undertaker ends up hitting a Tombstone Piledriver on X-Pac, pinning him for the 3. And your winners of the match, and at that time, new WWE Tag Team Champions, are The Undertaker and The Big Show. Hats off to The Undertaker and The Big Show for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is The Rock versus Billy Gunn. I thought this was an okay matchup. Back and forth matchup between both The Rock and Billy Gunn. Rock ends up hitting a DDT on Billy Gunn. Gunn then hits his signature famouser on The Rock. Rock then gets up, hits his signature rock bottom as well as his people's elbow on Billy Gunn, pinning him for the 3. And your winner of the match is The Rock. Hats off to The Rock for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our main event of SummerSlam 1999. It is a triple threat match for the WWE Championship. It is Triple H versus Stone Cold versus Mankind. I thought this was a great match. Back and forth matchup with everybody involved. Triple H hits a pedigree on Austin. Mankind then takes advantage of that, throws Triple H out of the ring. Mankind then hits a signature double arm DDT on Austin, pinning him for the 3. And your winner of the match, and at that time, new WWE Champion, is Mankind. A couple of things I'm going to say about SummerSlam before I get out of here. Number one, it was a great event. I thought it was a really decent event. Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys, the tag team turmoil match was absolutely insane. It's always great to see Edge and Christian versus the Hardys. I mean, fantastic tag teams with both Edge and Christian and the Hardys. They always put a fantastic match on. The Jeff Jarrett D'Lo Brown match I could have done without, even though there was 2 titles technically on the line with European Championship and the Intercontinental Championship, but it is D'Lo Brown and Jeff Jarrett. The women's match, the Ivory versus Tori match for the women's championship, it was okay at best. I mean, Ivory, I feel like, doesn't get a whole lot of credit where credit's due. I think she's a really good wrestler. Tori, on the other hand, really wasn't a wrestler. I think she was more or less a diva. The Lions Den matchup, I was a big fan of Ken Shamrock growing up, to be honest with you. I thought Shamrock was awesome. To me, he was great Intercontinental Champion. Not the greatest, but he was a great Intercontinental Champion. The Lions Den match, though, I was not a big fan of. I'm not a big fan of the gimmick matches, period. I'm just not a big fan of them. And WCW is also known for that, too, to put on some gimmick matches that were just horrendous. And, I mean, honestly, it's insane how bad those gimmick matches were. But not really a big fan of the Lions Den match. But, again, hats off to Shamrock for getting the win in that match. The hardcore match between Al Snow and Big Boss Man was absolutely insane. And it was kind of hilarious to see Road Dogg on the microphone throughout the entire match. It was kind of hilarious. The Test versus Shane McMahon street fight was absolutely insane. with Shane hitting that elbow drop off the top rope on test off the announce table was absolutely insane. And obviously the main event being Triple H, Stone Cold, and Mankind for the WWE Championship with special guest referee, I might add, Jesse the Body Ventura. It was a good matchup. The main event was really, really good. If I had to give SummerSlam 1999 a rating from 1 out of 10, I'm going to give it a solid 6, man. 6.5 at best. Not the worst SummerSlam, but it definitely wasn't the best. But this is my review of SummerSlam 1999. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classy.